two state lawmakers joining us on In Focus. State Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith, District 49 in Orlando, as well as State Representative Michelle Rayner, District 70 in St. Pete. Representatives, welcome back to the show. We really appreciate you joining us here on In Focus. And so, all right, so the 2021 Florida legislative session that wrapped up on April 30th, not to mention the special session. But a bill that got a lot of attention was that transgender sports bill. And this was the proposal to ban trans women from participating in women's sports in schools because, according to the bill sponsors, trans women have an unfair athletic advantage over their non-transgender counterparts. So Representative Smith, was this one step back, like the executive director of the Zebra Coalition just mentioned in our piece? What do you think?
Absolutely, Allison. And thank you for having us on your show to have this discussion during Pride Month. Because yes, LGBTQ Pride Month is a time for people in the community to be proud, to celebrate our authenticity, to be out, to be visible, but also to reflect on where we are. And right now, when it comes to LGBTQ people being able to live their lives openly, proudly, and authentically, that has been politicized because of the polarization around our identities. Right now, in the year 2021, unfortunately, transphobia is the new homophobia. That's not to say that homophobia has been eradicated and we don't have work to do, but unfortunately, in politics, in the Florida legislature where we serve, we saw a terrible attack against transgender youth. This bill that has been passed both chambers, that's now heading to Governor DeSantis, that would basically expel and humiliate transgender students who have been playing on athletic teams for many, many years without incident and without really any justification. We hear a bunch of lies from the far right about how they're there to protect the integrity of women's sports. But the reality is that both transgender girls and cisgender girls come in all shapes and sizes. They're all different, and they all should be eligible to participate in team sports.
And again, kicking off the show with two Democratic state representatives. So Representative Rayner, then, this was your first legislative session as a lawmaker. I mean, so you have this debate about transgender sports participation. Is there an unfair athletic advantage? Meaning, do our schools need this protection?
Once again, Allison, thank you so much for having us. And the answer to your question is absolutely not. There is not an unfair advantage. And I think what was so disheartening is that there are already, this issue has already been dealt with the Florida High School Athletic Association and other organizations that already have standards with regard to having transgendered youth be able to play in sports. So this is a bill that's really just to feed the culture wars. This is a bill that is political red meat for the far right base, and it was a bill that really was designed to harm and inflict pain on transgender children and their families. And I think what is so disheartening about it, the first iteration of the bill included genital inspections of children. And then when this bill finally got back to us under cloak and dagger, and really in the last hour of session, we were supposed to be okay that they took the bill sponsor took the genital inspection portion out of the bill. It's not okay. Anyway, like it's just not okay. It's not okay with it, without it, because the basis of this bill is based in hate and it's based in harming children. And that to me is the most problematic part of this bill. This is a bill that no one asked for. This is a bill that the people of Florida didn't ask for. I know when I campaigned, no one said, yes, this is the issue I want you to go and fix, because people, in the words of my colleague, transgender girls just want to be left the hell alone. And that is in the words of my great friend and dear colleague, Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith.
So Representative Smith, and this issue, along with Senate Bill 90, the elections bill, even House Bill 1, the anti-riot bill, these seem to be almost like mick legislation, right? Meaning fast order bills written by outsiders and pushed by specific groups to highlight perhaps the conservative agenda. I mean, are you sensing frustration that elected leaders are seemingly rubber stamping this kind of legislation?
Well, what you just named is a whole bunch of legislation that passed in Tallahassee this session that are solutions in search of non-existent problems. Take the transgender athletic band, for example. Transgender students have been participating in team sports in Florida since 2013 without incident, thanks to guidelines that came from the Florida High School Athletic Association. And yet, not only did the Republican lawmakers in Tallahassee pass that bill, but they prioritized it over issues like fixing our broken unemployment system, offering direct assistance to small businesses who've struggled during COVID-19, the elections bill. They said that we had the smoothest election in 2020 in the country, and yet they insisted on cracking down on our ability to vote by mail and use drop boxes. Hate Bill 1, cracking down on peaceful protesters in response to Black Lives Matter, which really has played out in the state of Florida without incident. So these are solutions in search of problems. But as we talk about Pride Month, it's important to understand that when we politicize and weaponize the gender identities and sexual orientations of LGBTQ people, we're really putting them at risk. But more importantly, it marginalizes their lives and makes them targets for hate violence, which we've seen an increase of.
But Representative Rayner, folks have different perspectives and different life experiences. So does expanding rights for the LGBTQ plus community, does that infringe on the rights of heterosexuals? Meaning, does this force those with different belief systems to accept a community that maybe doesn't align with their values?
Allison, I don't mean to chuckle, but it's analogous to saying when you expand the rights of Black and brown folks, does that, infringe upon the rights of white people? And absolutely not. It does not. Everyone has the right and deserves the right to live the fullness of who they are, to live in that agency, to be safe, to have equitable housing, to have food, to have clean water, all the things that everyone has the right to have. That goes for folks who have, different gender identities than cisgender, who have a sexual orientation, who identify as queer or gay or lesbian or pan, or, everyone has the right to live and show up as their full self and to be safe as they show up. And so it is, I have heard that argument, well, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it on my TV, or, I don't want to be around it. Well, then you have the option to turn your TV. You have the option to go places that you may not encounter someone who's trans or who is a lesbian or who identifies as gay or queer. But ultimately, at the end of the day, while you may not understand it, you may not like it, whatever your point is that does not impede upon that person's right to live fully. I mean, this is the work that I've done as a civil rights attorney. When we're fighting for civil rights, it's not just so we can make another group feel comfortable, but we're allowing everyone to come into their fullness. So the fact that giving someone else full access to their rights would impede someone else's rights is laughable, because we understand if the most marginalized of us are free, then we're all free. And I would say the most marginalized of us are Black trans women who are murdered and who have a life expectancy of 34 years in this country. And we've even seen recently a 16-year-old Black trans girl was hung in Massachusetts. So this is what we're talking about, that if we don't push forward for rights for everyone, all of our rights are in peril.
And we have 20 seconds left, Representative Smith. We talk a lot about the journey of progress, right? So what's next for Florida in that journey, the next step for the LGBTQ plus community? Briefly, please.
Well, it's really important that we urge our members of Congress, especially Senators Rick Scott and Marco Rubio, to support the Federal Equality Act. This is something that's going to ensure that we have equal treatment finally for LGBTQ Americans in employment, in housing, in credit, even jury service. And we certainly need their support. And we also need to make sure that we send a positive message to LGBTQ youth, especially trans youth. We love them for who they are, we accept them, and we celebrate them every day. That's what makes Pride Month so wonderful during this time of year.
And kicking off our conversation today, Democratic State Representatives Carlos Guillermo Smith and Michelle Rayner. We do appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us.